Welcome to the Mavericks podcast. In today's episode, we are joined by a friend, Cooper Paget. Originally meeting in the church environment, we decided to sit down and talk a little bit on some religious topics. In this episode, we got a little sidetracked at the beginning. The juice of the conversation starts at around 17 minutes, and we start to get on a roll from that point. There will be a part 2 released soon with the meat of the conversation, so stay tuned for the next episode.
This is my guest today. His name is Cooper Paget.
Yes, sir.
And he's gonna join us on our little journey to, I don't even know what we'd call it.
Talking?
Talking. The focus today is gonna be centered around not necessarily religious beliefs, but a lot of the people that I tend to run into, especially at work or just in other places, the workplaces or on the street,
Yeah.
most of them don't really have a sense of purpose or a sense of where they want to go in life, or a sense of maybe the next step that they could take to become a better version of themselves. And a lot of people don't even know what a better version of themselves would look like, or even that they could become a better version of themselves, like they're stuck.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to address some of those things. We might not cover it all while we're here. I do have the Bible with me. It's a bit of an older version, and I'm thinking of maybe taking a couple words. Yeah.
That's a little old.
So I want to maybe insert some stuff that's insert some scripture from there, if I can remember which pieces that I found interesting and that I made connections with. But I kind of want to start with an introduction to who Jesus is
Yeah.
and why he's such a good figure for us to follow.
Which
And
chapter are you in?
I'm in Matthew.
I mean, like which chapter?
I'm on 16, but I'm not necessarily, I didn't plan
Okay.
out a specific scripture that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay. I got you.
But I do want to take your perspective, because you've definitely read more than me, and I kind of want you to give me a little bit of insight, or maybe insight's the right word,
Yeah.
and to Jesus in your perspective and what you've read and what the scripture says about it that you know of, and so
Just
that we have
who Jesus is.
yeah, as to who Jesus is, so we have a little bit of a better understanding. So I have a little bit of a better understanding of who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I want to go take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the stuff that I know about properly taking the next steps into maybe finding some sort of path, maybe not the path that you're going to stay on for the rest of your life, but something that gives you a good solid step forward.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit about that. I know a little bit of scripture on it, not necessarily the most, but I haven't really taken the time, and I haven't really sat down and read all the way through to find out who Jesus was as a person, and kind of the descriptions that other people would give him, or essentially what the scripture says about him and his person, and what he did for other people. And
Yeah.
I kind of want you to help me touch on that, help me learn a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah, you're good. So Jesus is the Son of God. He's God in human form. Came down through a virgin, Mary, who had never had sex, had a baby. It's pretty tough thing to show other people. Be like, I'm a virgin, but here's my kid. But so he was born in Nazareth, and then for the first 30 years of his life, there's not a lot of like scripture on that. There's not a lot of history on that, but what he was until he got baptized. So he got baptized by John the Baptist, which was his cousin. So his mom's cousins had John the Baptist.
Didn't he
Anyways.
get beheaded?
I
I read something.
Might have.
I read something either last night or this morning. Something about
A lot of those guys got messed up. Like his disciples and maybe John the Baptist. But anyways, so John the Baptist was baptizing people before he baptized Jesus. And so Jesus came up to him and was like, you need to baptize me. And John the Baptist was like, I can't baptize you. Like, I'm not good enough to baptize you. And so Jesus like convinced him. He gets baptized by John the Baptist. And that's when he starts his ministry. So he's going to people in Nazareth, people just all around his area, trying to, I don't know, explain himself as the Son of God and tell them how to move on, how to keep on going with using old scripture from the Old Testament. And yeah, helped a lot of people, helped everybody. I don't know. Do you have any questions?
No,
something that you wanted to know in particular? That I can say I don't know to?
And it might be a thing that we both just don't know have enough information on it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, eventually I will get there, and I'm sure you will do the same.
It's the goal.
In your search.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I do know and what I do understand, and it's kind of what I talk to other people about, is kind of when you're searching for your path, or when you're going and trying to find the right path,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't really know where to look.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case for me, I really didn't know where to start, and I decided to just start swinging, essentially, I guess is what you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've dipped my toes in so many little places that are just extremely different from one another. Like, I've dipped my hands into business, serving, not in church, like
Like
restaurants.
server? Yeah.
Restaurants. I've dipped my hands in writing,
Mm-hmm.
songwriting, a little bit of guitar, now a little bit of poetry, reading a lot, and kind of absorbing a lot of information. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's kind of where my path is going to take place. But
So in Scripture, in Matthew, it talks about building your house on Jesus, like building your life on Jesus. So it gives you a something to think about when I talk about building a house on sand.
yeah, I've read that.
Building a house
I'm into
on
that. The parable.
But building your house on God is, storms, waves. Nothing's gonna have that crumble like it will if you do it on sand or you do it on dirt.
Right, a solid foundation that doesn't move.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah. So using Jesus as your foundation and trying to move on like step by step from there, that's how you're gonna get the best. Because you can get up to heights. There's people that get up to like crazy heights in popularity on doing stuff that's not Christian, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And those people also take the hardest falls,
Right.
So seeing people that build their house on Jesus, and actually on Jesus, not claiming that it's on Jesus, but it's actually on Jesus, they build that different than the people that don't. They're built different. Those houses are built different.
You said something I wanted to touch on.
Mm-hmm. You better take it easy on that water.
I know I'm running out.
Soon.
So I drink more when I'm.
When you're podcasting, when you're potting?
No, when I'm not sure what's the saying. It's like a habit.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, the other week when we were at that Bible study, dude, I was rolling. We're just getting all the questions out, learning a bunch, making connections.
Oh, on Wednesday?
That Wednesday night, yeah.
Sick group. So sad you have to work on Wednesdays.
I know. I wish I could go out more, or to that.
Go out to Bible study?
Because I think it would be a lot of fun, especially now that I'm starting to read again.
Yeah, I mean, the more you read, the more questions you get. Those guys can back me up on that, because when I was reading Mark, I was coming up with questions like every week. I'd come up with a question, they'd be like, I have no idea. And then they'd have to, like John could go talk to his dad, who's a pastor. Or, it was like, I was bringing questions that nobody knew the answers to sometimes. But it kind of gives you a better look on why you need to have community like that in your life. Because if you have questions, you can ask those questions to people. If you're doing this kind of walk alone, you don't have anybody that you can ask questions to, you know?
But I can definitely relate to that because that's kind of what I was doing.
Yeah, you're just getting questions. You're like, oh, I guess I'll never know. You know?
Yeah.
What's the point in reading this if I don't have the answers to that question?
And I would kind of search online, but it's not really the same when you're just getting perspective of some sort of generation on the internet, rather than, or videos, I guess.
Rather than personal.
Yeah, rather than just talking in person with someone and going back and forth on thoughts. And that's kind of why I like this. Is when I'm talking to someone, then typically in the conversation that they're having back with me, I can adapt and take in what they're saying and maybe reform something in my mind that maybe helps them understand and makes me ultimately understand better what I'm trying to say. So
when you're having a question like that, do you think you're trying to get the other person to understand the question, or are you trying to understand the answer? What do you think is more of
something that I focus on?
Yeah.
I focus more on trying to get the other person to understand the question that I'm asking.
Right.
Because if you can understand the question that I'm asking instead of some different form that maybe you got at first glance, then you're answering a question that I'm not even asking at that point because you have a different understanding. So if I can get you to understand the reason why I'm asking this question and what it correlates to in my life or what it correlates to in my understanding, then I can better help you understand the question and therefore being able to help me out to answer the question or just to answer it simply outright.
Walking through those steps gives you not only the answer to your question, but also the answer to a bunch of questions that you didn't really have, but now you have the answer to in case somebody else asks you that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's smart. That's nice.
I like to I kind of have a spider web of information, and it's kind of blanking out right now, but I think I might have burnt myself out this morning with all the stuff I did. But usually I can make a connection and then kind of piece it together in a little web, and usually it correlates from one to the other. So actually, I think I found my thought process, and I've talked a little bit about this with you, but the correlation that I make or that helps me to helps me to understand not necessarily the word easier, but kind of maybe the connection in my mind. So the connection is connecting the truth to Jesus. And the reason I make that connection is because I like to search out the truth. And I haven't really been too versed in the Bible.
Yeah.
And that's my own fault. But I don't need to touch on that.
Right.
But I like to find the truth. And in the process of trying to find the truth, all of the correlations that I've made or all the stuff that I've learned that have proven to be true in my life and how I've seen things take place in other people's lives, I can look back on the Bible or things people have not understood but have learned from the Bible themselves.
So you're working off things that people tell you about the Bible.
That's strictly my understanding right now.
Yeah.
So and that's how I've learned most of the stuff I've learned from the Bible.
Right.
Is usually it's what people have told me, what makes sense, or I've seen scripture and I have someone elaborate on that scripture for me. Like one of the pastors that go to the church near here, Paxidle.
Yeah.
He, especially him, has helped me. He's helped me understand more about scripture than most people. Besides maybe that Wednesday night that I went, but that was just a back and forth.
Yeah.
Until we finally, and that's kind of what it was. Is like me saying my point, him saying his point, and then we were both adapting what we were saying to come to an understanding, so that we could move on to the next question, or so that we could both figure out the question together. And that's kind of what I enjoyed about that.
Right.
And that's why we ended up talking for like an hour.
Yeah.
Just by ourselves, and y'all were turned away in another way.
We're having our own conversation on the other side of the table. Yeah. I mean, the thing you're talking about, how you're getting scripture, you're getting the Bible just through someone else's eyes, how they saw the Bible and how they have heard from other people. That's a great way. That's how everybody starts. You know, that's how everybody gets their first interpretation of the Bible, is by somebody else's interpretation of the Bible. Because I don't think 99% of people maybe don't just see, oh, it's a Bible, I'm gonna pick that up. I'm gonna go try to read that. I haven't heard anything about that, but I'm gonna try to read that.
Right.
Nobody does that. They go off of either their parents who were Christians and read the Bible, and they're going off their parents' interpretation of the Bible, or they're going off of a pastor who just came to their school one day, their interpretation. Or there's a lot of different communities people grow up in, that like the community that I grew up in, it was everybody's pushing the Bible to you, you know. And there's people that live in, I don't know, Chicago, Atlanta. They don't have people that as much as I did that come up and try to push gospel on you.
Right.
I don't know. There's different ways to take it too. Like somebody can get the gospel in the wrong way, and then they're turned off from the Bible for a long time.
Yeah.
So I feel like I was blessed to be able to be in a spot where I didn't push it away immediately. I didn't have a bad person trying to push the Bible on me when they don't have their own grip on it.
Yeah, in a negative light, basically.
Exactly. So graduating from somebody else's interpretation of it to you reading it yourself, that gives you a whole different look on it.
Yeah, I can agree with that, because that's kind of what I'm going through right now. And
it's sweet. It's a great process. It's fun to get your own look on it.
Yeah, and honestly, I've just started on Matthew, and I'm halfway through it. But it seems like for some reason I thought it was going to be more tedious to read.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I don't know if I'm halfway through Matthew's interpretation of Jesus' life, but I'm 16 verses in, and there's only 28, you said?
Yep.
So I'm already that much through it, and it's pretty captivating.
And you haven't caught a spot where you're like, this is boring yet?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a few spots, and it's just because of translation that I'm like, well, I don't really know what that's saying, but it's not been very often.
ESV is not going to hurt you, brother.
So, and I can just ask questions on that.
For sure.
What I want to touch on, and why hopefully people are here listening instead of just us ranting on, is kind of finding a purpose. And the reason why I'm correlating that to Jesus, and if you're not necessarily religious, that's okay, but Jesus as a person, well, yeah, Jesus as a person did lead a very extraordinary life, and you can say that without a doubt.
Yeah.
And the teachings that he said, or that he taught, really made an impact, and it makes an impact on people. And the fact that he had that much knowledge 2,000 years ago,
2024 years ago, isn't that pretty crazy?
is the fact of that kind of wisdom being back then, and that it still applies to today.
For sure. Yeah.
Is, for one, in and of itself, amazing.
It's timeless.
And just going based off of that, you can learn a lot. Even if you're not necessarily religious, you can learn a lot from just him and his teachings and the way he lived his life.
Yeah.
And if we want to take a step back, taking a little bit of a religious spin on it, we are called to be more like Jesus and act as if Jesus did, right? So our quote-unquote purpose in life is to be more like Jesus, or that's the best way to live our lives. And obviously everyone has different interests that they're interested in, and I would say go for those, but also act in those things as if I would say as if Jesus did, or as if he was doing it, but to kind of, take that apart, act as if.
I try to attack every situation that I get into. If I don't know what to do, what would Jesus do if he was in my shoes?
Right.
Yeah. Is that what you mean? Like taking every situation on like Jesus would take that situation?
Maybe. And maybe you can look at it like that. Yeah, for now, we'll just say that, because this is the best translation. I can't piece something together in my brain.
I don't have a King James Version translation of that.
So essentially, you can take that perspective and that spin on it.
Yeah.
And if you want to look at it in terms of Jesus being the truth, and for some reason, at least in my life and what I've seen in other people's life, people usually have, and it's a Nietzschean thought too, which is, I believe, a German philosopher from old days.
Yeah.
But it's, for some reason, humans haven't, not inbred, I don't know if innate's the right word for it. It might be the right word. Inside of us, there's a natural instinct, I guess you could call it, that wants to search out the truth.
Yeah.
And there's no real way of, if you take religious beliefs out of it, there's no real way that you can, or there's a really big rabbit hole anyways that you can go down of trying to find why we have this instinctual drive to find the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, really big rabbit hole, because I was listening to some stuff on it before, maybe yesterday, and it's a really, really big rabbit hole, because then you go into finding, well, like, what is the truth and what defines the truth?
Yeah, sure.
And the thought is like, the truth is the truth if it applies to the situation current and for an extended period of time. I might have misworded that, but that's kind of the basis of it. It's like, if it works in this circumstance and continues to work over a period of time, that is, in essence, the truth. And,
Okay.
and that's the best I got.
Yeah.
It's the best I've heard, and I've interpreted it a little bit differently, but that's the best that anyone's really got. It's like, that's the truth. It's,
for sure.
if you take out any sort of religious behind it, it works in this circumstance for over an extended period of time. And we have an innate drive to find it, to find the truth. And that's kind of how I've been. It's like, I'm always trying to find the truth. And the truth does, in my case, lead me back to Jesus. And the reason I say that is because everything that I've ever learned about life and things that I've deemed true about life and things that I've...
Yeah, you can shoot back to the Bible.
When it's related back to the Bible, or when I hear scripture related to it, I can always make the connection.
Yeah.
There's always a solid connection. And this is coming, keep in mind, this is coming from someone who hasn't read the Bible. So I learn these things, and then I'm taking these things back to the Bible,
right,
in essence, or hearing it from other people, and I'm like, okay, what he's saying connects directly what I know to be true. And in that instance, it's like, okay, this connection can be made. It's like, this connects straight to the Bible. And I will say, out of all the information that I've ever learned, the vast majority, if not most of it, if not all of it, has been related back to the Bible.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping this in mind. I'm not someone who has come from a background of reading the Bible. So I'm not very versed in the scripture. And so that's a big thing.
So when you come across something that you're struggling with, and then you hear somebody talk about that in relation to the Bible, is that something that you seek out to find something that has to do with the Bible in that scenario, or does that come just naturally?
It usually comes naturally.
That's, a lot of times, that's God. That's God.
Yeah.
He's like, Mavericks struggling with this. I'm going to send somebody to talk about that to him.
Well,
And then the person that has that thought and that brings that to you, sometimes they're like, I don't know why I brought this up, but I just feel like I needed to bring this up.
Right, and a lot of people would call that coincidence, which I say that with air quotes.
Divine intervention.
Yeah. And coincidence, the term means, in mathematical sense, two angles or two lines that coincide at the right time, the right place.
Yeah.
Like, essentially perfect.
Like two lines going like that?
But that coincide perfectly the exact way they need to be. So that's what coincidence means.
Right.
So if you take that spin on it, like I said, of the normal people, it's like, oh, it just happened because it happened. It's like the definition of coincidence is, two things that coincide perfectly in the right place in the right time. And that's an even more interesting thing. But in that sense, we can, just for maybe a not relational, but just to help people relate to that a little bit better. In essence, for a real life example, yesterday I did come across a lady at church, and I touched on this a little bit with you before we aired, but I was about to leave. I wasn't really having a good day, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just, as soon as I got there, for some reason, super negative. I just wanted to leave the entire time I was there. I was really fighting the urge, and I really just wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And after the service was over, I was like, okay, I'll go talk to, I think it was Jacob.
Okay.
Longer hair.
Yeah.
So I told myself, it's like, if he doesn't move from where he's at, by the time I get my stuff, I'll go up there and I'll talk to him for a little bit. Because I was telling myself, I said, I need to stop being so antisocial. And
You're giving yourself an out, though? You're like, if
I
he
was
moves,
giving myself
I'm
an
good
out.
to go.
Yeah. If he went to go talk to someone else, I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave.
Yeah.
So, and I got up. He didn't move. He didn't go talk to anyone. He was just kind of standing there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take my opportunity, and I'm going to not be an antisocial little bug today. So I'm trying to take more opportunities to be more social and improve upon that on myself. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not in the best mood, but I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to start talking.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was going to start talking about, but I just went up there.
He's really easy to talk to, too.
Yeah. So went up, tapped him on the back, and he was super excited. He's like, dude, I've been thinking about you.
Yeah.
We didn't actually get to touch on any of that kind of stuff.
While I was thinking about you.
Yeah. But I shook his hand, and we talked for a little bit. I don't remember exactly what we talked about. I do remember saying kind of that. It's like, I did not want to be here today, and I told myself I would, and I decided to just come up and talk to you. And I think that's kind of where it ended, and then he got distracted. Or I got distracted. No, he got distracted. And then you guys came up, said hi.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? Is that when we're sitting down in service, we're sitting in the middle of the church, like middle of the chapel, and you guys are front right.
Yeah.
And I was like, looking, I saw Jacob, and I was like, I wonder if Mavericks here. I looked around, I couldn't see you. And then I was like looking over, and you were like this for 1 second. You tilted forward for like 1 second. I was like, no shot, he's here. I saw you through like 3 people.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, that is funny. While I was sitting down?
Yeah.
That's
wild,
funny.
dude.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. You were sitting forward a little bit, and I was like, there he is. I see that curly hair. He's here.
It's not
Let's
hard
go.
to miss.
It's not hard to miss.
But after you guys said hi, you guys started your own conversation, and then Jacob went off. Someone called him over there. So I was just standing there by myself, which makes me feel really awkward, to be honest with you. Like, when I'm just standing there by myself, I'm like, I don't know what to do other than leave.
That couldn't have been for long.
Well, it wasn't. After, it was maybe for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, but that was like a really long time for me, because I'm just sitting there.
No, that's
Or
a
not
really
even
long
sitting
time
there,
for
but-
anybody to be standing alone.
So
Yeah,
I was just standing there, and I was kind of looking at my phone a little bit. No service. So I was like, well, I can't do anything on my phone. So I was just giving a little bit of time, and as soon as I put my phone up, and didn't even get to take a step, I put my phone up. This older lady comes up to me.
Yeah.
And I think her name was Esta, but I'm not sure.
Esta?
ESTA. I saw it on the name tag. I'm
Was
not
it
sure.
Aston Martin?
No.
Might have been
But-
Aston.
She came up to me and she was like, God just highlighted you to me and wanted me to come up and tell you something. And butchering not an exact quote.
Right.
I don't remember exactly what she said,
got
but
you.
that's like a rough estimate.
Not gonna quote you
And,
on it.
and she said that God wanted me to come up and tell you that you have the gift of connection. And when she said that initially, for one, she just came up out of nowhere, and I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Just come up randomly.
I mean, people that are in that, they have a name tag on at church.
Yeah, they're up there for prayers and stuff. Yeah.
But that's pretty wild, because they usually wait for somebody to approach them.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And then the Joseph that I met the other day, or not the other day, but a few weeks ago, he wasn't there. So I kind of looked for him a little bit, but also at the same time I was being antisocial, and I was just going to leave anyways. So it didn't matter. But
Checking the time on your phone for a minute and a half.
yeah, nope, that's exactly what I was doing. But she came up and told me that, and I asked her to elaborate on it a little bit. And I won't get too much into that, but
Did you talk to her about like the day you were having?
I don't remember, I'll be honest with you. I might have.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I don't think so. Because
Yeah, walk me through what, like, the conversation, how it went at the beginning.
After she said that, I was like, me being me, I like to ask questions. I asked her if she could elaborate on that, or if she could explain to me in a better sense what she meant by that. Because, and I think that kind of caught her off guard because she wasn't really expecting.
Right.
I don't think she was expecting to have to.
That's a
explain
great
it a little
question.
bit.
Because I have the same question all the time. People
Yeah.
are like, God told me this. God made me like want to do this, and I'm like,
Yeah, and then-
can you walk me through what happened to make you say that God made you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was questioning a little bit. I did make the connection during the conversation to the whole leadership thing,
Yeah.
but essentially what she said was that I have the gift of connection, and and this is what's crazy about it. She said that I have a crazy ability to be able to connect with people in a way that most people can't. And I think that's kind of how she started it. And
Yeah.
she's like, you can go up to anyone and you're super easy to talk to, and people feel really connected when they're talking to you.
Yeah.
And that caught me off guard because I was like, that's almost exactly to the T true. I was like,
Yeah.
I've never had someone, for one, tell me to go away when I've been
Right.
talking to them.
True.
But also, everyone that I usually get into a long conversation with, I feel like anyways, and it seems like that from the body language they give off, they always have a good time. They always leave with a smile, and they usually feel better when they leave. And maybe it's that whole connection thing, and that's kind of what I was questioning. It's like maybe that's where the connection piece, the gift of connection, is kind of leading. So when she said that, I was like, okay, that completely makes sense. And I think I told her, I was like, that makes complete sense. I told her a little bit about the leadership and the prophecy thing. And when she was elaborating more on it, she said that I had the gift to connect with people, connect people to other people,
Yeah.
and also connect people with God. And those three things in and of itself, it's already
sweet.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's caught me off guard for one, and then the things she said were completely true.
Yeah.
Or at least to the best of my knowledge, they were true, right? The definition
About you?
of truth, right?
Yeah.
So they definitely all apply to me because I have had many conversations with many people, and almost all of them, if not all of them, have been very, very meaningful and have been some sort of connection on a deeper level. And it's exactly basically what she came up to me and said. So going back to the original point, the whole coincidence thing is like kind of coincidence, quote unquote, that she came up at the exact right time, right when I was about
True.
to leave, had a horrible day and didn't
Yeah.
want to be there anyways. And then all of a sudden she comes out of nowhere and just speaks this on me.
I think
So it's
God
just
gave her
like-
that highlight at the perfect time. Exactly
Exactly.
when he wanted to give her that highlight, and gave her what the highlight is about at the perfect time. Exactly when everything's lined up.
Right. And that's
Everything gets lined up, yeah.
essentially that's what coincidence, the word and the definition is describing. Is divine intervention, is like what you said, and that's what it is. And people use coincidence in a different light. They usually it's like just to describe some random occurrence that seems like it
Yeah.
lined up perfectly.
But everything's a domino that ends up pushing some other domino over.
Right.
Like I can't think of one thing that has happened that hasn't pushed a domino over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, leads you to the next step.
Like getting
In
this
essence.
coffee, I pulled up right in front of my girlfriend in the coffee line. She was right behind me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was talking to the lady that was giving me the coffee, because we both talked about going to get coffee.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's like, you see that girl behind me in the car? She was like, yeah. I was like, tell her I think she's cute. They were like, no way. Okay. Like they didn't know we were dating. So me getting coffee and her pulling up right behind me, that's
pretty funny.
that's something that's like, oh, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's a domino. Boom. Sam likes me more. Let's go.
Did she text you afterwards?
Yeah. She was
That's
like, you're
funny.
so stupid. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. But no, you're talking about the connection. I think that a different way to look at it when you're talking about connecting to people is that nobody feels like, because a lot of times when I'm talking to people, it feels like a conversation that doesn't matter. You know, like if I'm talking to somebody that I've never met before, and it's like a really quick, sorry, never met before. I'm gonna try not to stumble my words, but sometimes I'll talk to them, and it's a conversation that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. How's your day going? Pretty good. All right. You know,
Yeah, small
But,
talkish.
yeah, there's a difference between that and having a conversation with somebody where you're like, there's somebody behind that conversation. There's not just a, hey, what's up? Keep walking kind of thing. You can be like, hey, what's up? Like, how are you? You know, that's different than, you know, how's it going? How are you versus how's it going? That's a different connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how is your picking up a Gatorade? How's that going? That's how's it going. How are you doing is, how did you feel when you walked in here right now? You know? Maybe they'll give you the same answer as they would have given to a how's it going.
So I would kind of argue against that because those kind of point to the same thing.
Yeah.
But let me see if I can word this right. Is more of, you know, how are you doing? It's more of a natural reaction that people have when they answer it. So it's, and how's it going is kind of points at the same thing. Crap. So, anyways,
talking about the same answer.
Yeah. Those questions not point towards, but they automatically point the other person that's responding to a natural reaction because everyone says it, and basically everyone says it.
True.
So they're just like, yeah, I'm doing good. And most of the time, people, when they say that, especially if it's fast and they don't think about it, that's just a natural reaction. They're probably not really doing good.
Yeah, true.
And that's kind of the surface,
for sure.
The surface small talk, right? If we talk about it. Now, if we walk through that same situation again, and it can be tonnage too. They're just like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah,
and you know, dap them up, whatever.
Yeah.
You give them a handshake.
Versus stopping for a second, speak a little slower. How are you? How are you doing? They can still
right.
say
So
good,
tone,
but
right.
the next time, like they don't walk away from that thinking about whatever they're thinking about before. At that point, they're thinking about, like, sometimes they'll be like, how am I doing? You know,
Yeah.
like I might not be doing good, and that gives them an opportunity to think about that, and then gives them an opportunity to gives God an opportunity to throw something at him. You know, like how you're talking about how sometimes when you're struggling with something, God will just have somebody hit you with some scripture, and they don't know that it's for you, but you're getting something out of that. If they're thinking about something like, I actually am having a pretty bad day. Like, this isn't fun. This isn't good. And then maybe they'll see the sky being blue, and they'll be like, that's not that bad, you know?
Yeah.
Or somebody will just be talking to them and drop some scripture on them, and gives God an opportunity to plant the seed.
Right. And
Grow a seed.
No,
Make a
plant
tree.
the seed.
Yeah.
Or water it.
We're throwing seeds. He's watering them. Yeah, whatever. There's other people that water them. Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
But if we walk through that situation again, and I come up to you, and say that's the beginning conversation, whatever, that one already happened. So you missed your opportunity. So if I come up to you, and I shake your hand, it's like, hey man,
Yeah.
how you doing? I'm not really from here. It's my first time being here. I honestly haven't had the best day. So I'll be honest with you, but I would love to see how you're doing. I've never met you before, and you seem like a pretty cool person. So it's like, how are you doing today, man? You know?
Yeah.
And if I start out like that, it doesn't have to be super in depth.
Right.
And kind of what I was doing is, you have no clue who I am. I just come up to you randomly. I shake your hand, look you in the eyes. I was like, hey man, how are you doing?
Sure.
But then I go into say, it's like, I'm not from around here, and I'm a little new to this area. I'm new to the church, and this is kind of what I did when I first came. Actually, my first day there.
Yeah.
I just went up to random people, and not necessarily a whole bunch of people because I was still closed off, but I went up to a bunch of people, just trying to figure out where to go. And I was like, hey, my name's Maverick. I'm not from around here. First time being here.
Yeah.
And I could have been super awkward and been like, this.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I don't know where to go, but. And maybe it's just my personality at the same time, because I've worked on this for a long time. I used to be super awkward.
Yeah.
But if I go up and I lead like that,
You're still super awkward.
if I lead like that, then it throws off their natural way of thinking.
For sure.
So they're not just giving a random answer.
Yeah, they're not
that's
giving
more,
their
that's
go-to.
more,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more surface. It's like they have to sit there and think. It's like, okay, this guy just told me a little bit about himself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden they're open. They're open to talking to you on a more personal level.
Yeah.
Because I just came in and opened a little bit about myself, and now you feel connected.
Yeah.
And that's maybe that's kind of where the connection comes from. But it's just, all it took was me spilling a little bit of info about myself, having
the
a
ability
different
to dive
tone.
through that. Like, having the ability to think through that is maybe an even different. It's just a different way to look at the power of connection. Like, a lot of people that don't have that kind of power of connection don't even think about that kind of thing. They have no idea what you're talking about when you're like two different ways of talking to somebody. You know?
Yeah, I can see that, definitely.
Anyways, back to purpose.
Back to purpose, yeah. Wow, we got sidetracked there, huh?
We've been getting sidetracked.
So this is kind of more of a beginning surface look into the whole thing.
Yeah.
Probably gonna end this one here.